empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? We're 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order. We are live. This is show 2 of the day. We're getting cranked up. We have Bill the Bank Greene joining us. We're going to talk about the recruiting portal. We're going to talk about Ohio State recruiting the state of Ohio, which is a hot topic right now. How early is it that you should be offering some of these kids? Some of these kids are, they're committing early. They're going to Michigan. They're going elsewhere. We're going to get Bank's take on that. He was down in sunny South Florida and got to enjoy some great 7-on-7 football. Which is always a wild and crazy scene, and nobody knows the grounds of 7-on-7 like the Bank does. So we're going to get some takes on that, and we're going to take your questions. So we appreciate you guys being here, as always. We are always thankful for you guys. You guys have a lot of things you can check out at night, and you guys tuning in with us, we really appreciate it. We have a blast during the show. We're on BuckeyesCoop.com pretty much 24 hours a day, so it's a blast. The Scoop never sleeps. Football never sleeps. Ohio State recruiting and roster changes never sleep. So it is crazy. So you should join BuckeyesCoop.com because it is a blast. And I swear every hour there's some breaking story that we have to get to. And I am going to get to my man, Bill the Bank Greene. Bank, how are you tonight?
Good, man. Doing great.
So, obviously we got to get to the Florida stuff because you were down in the trenches of 7-on-7 football. Kind of set the scene for people that have never been to a 7-on-7 tournament. They don't really know what 7-on-7 is. Obviously it's outlawed in Ohio like it's some sort of illegal drug, which is crazy. But down there it is an entire livelihood, lifeblood. I love it because I think that these kids, there ain't no hiding. It's like you said, like you're out there in front of everybody. There's no safety help. You're one-on-one, and who gets to eat and who gets eaten is always interesting. But talk a little bit about the 7-on-7 tournament that you went to this past weekend.
Yeah, it was a battle 7-on-7. The team that won it was from Arizona. There was a team from Texas, team from California, team from Michigan, a ton of teams from Florida. I mean, it's a huge event. You know what I mean? When you get a group of kids coming from Arizona, California, Michigan, it's gigantic. It's a shame and a crime that Ohio doesn't allow it. You can't have 7-on-7 in Ohio, but it's got to be as a team event. St. Ed's can have a 7-on-7 with Maslin Perry, but it can't be like AAU basketball, which is really what 7-on-7 football is. The team we know best is the South Florida Express out of Miami, Brett Getz's group with Ricky Williams and those guys, Geno Smith. They have a group of all-stars, you know what I mean? And those kids will play together. They select a team in December, and 7-on-7 football will go all the way into May, go almost every weekend. They go to, they're at tournaments all over the place. They're in Vegas. They go to California. It's crazy, but it really is a huge help to these kids to make them better. And the kids that are playing 7-on-7 are not necessarily kids that are looking to get offered, that are under the radar kids. Last weekend, I mean, it was KJ Bolden, JJ Smith, JoJo Trader, just on and on and on. Best kids in the country are there at this event. So they do it to get better because they love it. When you have kids there that are ranked in the top 50 in America, they're not doing this for their ranking. They love competing, and it is a chance to get better. You know what I mean? So I love 7-on-7. I definitely wish Ohio would get involved in this. And, I know some of the reasons why they don't want to. They don't want these kids, being taken away from basketball and wrestling and stuff like that. But it is what it is, man. And it helps make kids better, and Ohio is absolutely falling behind in terms of producing the top end talent and even the middle talent and the low end talent. The state of Ohio is certainly not what it used to be in terms of producing Division I talent. As we were talking about, before the show started, the numbers in Ohio are staggering right now. The number of kids that signed Division I offers are half of what it used to be during the heyday of the state. Now, is 7-on-7 a cure for that? No, but it's a help. Is spring football a cure for that? No, but it's a help. So I love 7-on-7, and it's a great way to identify quarterbacks, wide receivers, and DBs.
I couldn't agree more. Again, I think it's a crime against humanity that we don't have 7-on-7 football, because I think that, the funny thing to me is there's so many arguments against 7-on-7 that are, oh, it'll take you from basketball, it'll take you from baseball, but you just see so much specialization nowadays, because
Right.
baseball doesn't care. Baseball, it goes all summer. It's obviously it's a spring sport in high school, but those kids are gone all
Oh,
summer playing. So, and they don't care about, oh, you're going to miss your football conditioning or your football workouts because you've got, a tournament for 4 days in Georgia or a tournament in Kentucky or whatever. And basketball, AAU basketball goes all summer too. So,
yeah.
I think it's a weak argument, because I think that, if kids really want to be the best, you need as much skill development as possible. And I think that, the biggest benefit to me about 7-on-7, man, is like, you got to go get after guys that are like as good as you. Like, I mean, if you're playing, at Lakewood St. Ed's or whatever, and you're playing a 7-on-7 against Massillon Perry, like, you're not going to see, you're not going to be a cornerback that's going against Brandon Innes or JoJo Trader or JJ Smith. But you go to these 7-on-7 tournaments, you got to check JJ Smith. Like, you're not in high school. There's just too much, where you are is where you are. And like in the hardest part to me about evaluating like an offensive lineman, for instance, is that if you're watching Taylor Decker, for instance, when he's at Vandalia Butler, he doesn't play against like all Big Ten defensive ends. He's throwing around like little kids on the ground. And, well, is he good, or is he just good because he's going against weak competition? But 7-on-7, man, you get the cream of you get best on best, and you get down to the nitty gritty of that tournament, man. And you're seeing dudes versus dudes. And for a guy like you that loves to get a good, firm evaluation, how beneficial is it to you to see dudes versus dudes at an event like that?
Oh, it's huge because, like you say, it's easy to watch JJ Smith run routes in a 75-10 game, where they have no chance. But in 7-on-7, if I see a DB that can hang with JJ Smith, then I know that he needs to be recruited by someone. You know what I mean? And when I see KJ Bolden, I know KJ Bolden can tackle. I've watched him on film. I don't know who he can cover or if he can cover from watching his high school film. When I watch him try to cover JoJo or JJ Smith, and I watched KJ Bolden cover people this weekend, I mean, to me, I always liked him anyway, and I thought he might be the best DB in the country. But when I saw him in person last weekend, it just reaffirmed everything that I thought I was seeing on tape. The size, the speed, the hip turn, ball skills, you see it all there because you're out there naked.
Yep.
I mean, and if you get abused, you get abused. And that's the way it is. I mean, Cormani McLean was probably the number one DB in the country last year. And he has a chance to be an NFL All-Pro. But he's not ready for that right now. Okay? He's going to get coached by Deion Sanders every day, and he needs that. So Cormani was ranked basically on his potential, which is out the roof. He's 6'3". He's got arms that stretch across the field. He can run. His potential is amazing. But in 7-on-7, he got beat up a lot last year in 7-on-7, to where Brandon Innes and those guys are yelling, "Get him off the field." So now I still like Cormani, and I would still take Cormani. That's not to indict him as a fraud, or I'm not saying that.
No.
But his best football is 2 or 3 years away. It's not today. Okay, so if you're recruiting Cormani, you got to know you're going to have to put a lot of time in on him. He is not ready to go right now. So I hope, when I look at Cormani, who's a great kid, going to Colorado, I hope they don't start him as a true freshman and he's got to cover the USC wideouts. He's not ready for that right now. Okay, and I hope Deion can see that and know that if you put a year into him, man, the payoff on the back end could be just gigantic. But if you put him out there too early and he loses all confidence and he gets destroyed, and man, that kid could be ruined. He is nowhere near close to a finished product. And that was kind of what 7-on-7 showed about Cormani, but people still ranked him highly because of all his skills. Not ready to play today. Could be an All-American in 2 or 3 years, though. So, but 7-on-7 exposes all that. I mean, there's just nowhere to hide. And it's the same thing that we see at the Ohio State camp.
Oh.
It's, it's not 11-on-11 there. It's 7-on-7. It's, and a lot of wide receiver against DB drills, one-on-one stuff.
Yeah.
But that's what Ryan Day's looking to see when he holds his camp. That's what he's looking to see.
Oh, I see. I think even when you go down to these events in South Florida, like you went to, like you're probably seeing more good on good just because of the region where it's located. It's closer to get to than Ohio State's camp. Because I feel like the talent has gone down at Ohio State's camp over maybe last year. It was down a little bit from 2 years ago when we went and saw Shamar and Nico and there were some ballers that were there 2 years ago. Last year it was a little drier. But I love 7-on-7 because a guy like Brandon Ennis will call a guy like Cromani, who's got 5 stars, who's #1 corner in the country, call him out. Because if you don't want to show up to work that day, you're gonna get worked. And if Dijon's a baller, because you talked about Dijon, who was committed to Ohio State at the time, and they said, hey, these kids, they don't get past Dijon. They were roasted in Cromani, but Dijon was balling.
Right.
And I think like for a guy like you that's gonna evaluate raw cover skills when there isn't a blitz. There's no defensive line. I mean, it's maximum difficulty for a corner. There's no D line pressure. There's no tip balls. There's no anything. And it's like, so you're just out there trying to run with, JJ.
Nowhere to hide. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's nowhere to hide in 7-on-7. You got it or you don't. Ball knows ball. You know what I mean? When we talk to Ricky or Brett Getz and those guys, and they tell us Dijon's a better player today, Cormani should be the much better player, down the road. But for today, trying to win a 7-on-7 tournament, we need Dijon out there more than we need Cormani out there. Yeah. And Cormani did get beat up a lot in 7-on-7 last year. And to his credit, he kept coming back every week, wanting more, because that's the way it works for a DB. And he's just so darn raw that, when I see him going to Colorado, the part of it I like is that he is going to get individual attention from the GOAT. Okay? If you can't learn from Dion, you can't learn. There's no hope for you. So, the downside might be that they might be forced to play him as a true freshman. And I just hate to see the kid thrown out there before he's ready, and then you lose all confidence, So we'll see. I like Cormani so much as a kid, and, I'm just anxious to see how he does there. And I just hope he doesn't get demolished early on. No different than Ohio State maybe putting Luke Montgomery out there to block the Alabama defensive ends next year. He might not be ready for that. Luke might be an All-American in a couple of years, but he may not be ready now. That would be my comparison. When you put him out there too early, and there's a chance that they can just get demolished mentally and physically, and then you lose confidence, and then, man, it's a fight back when you lose your confidence, as an athlete. And you know how that is.
Oh, you have to be. I always tell the guys, I'm like, look, you might think you stink, or you might think you're, but you got to fake it till you make it, man. Because you're gonna go out there and you're gonna get because again, the hardest part, like with evaluating offensive linemen, in my opinion, is the mental. Because they're guys that they are world beaters in high school. They murder kids. Again, Connor Smith's a classic because I literally used to tell TJ Down, I was like, this kid's gonna take your spot. I'm telling you. I watched him against Canton McKinley. Dumped Antoine Height on his head, like jackknife powerbombed him on the middle of the McKinley logo. And I was like, TJ, he's way better than you. I was like, I just hope that he becomes my roommate. So, I was that impressed with the kid. I thought he was gonna be Alan Faneca, and then shows up. And Connor's like one of the nicest kids you'd ever meet. But that first year, man, he just struggled in pass pro, and they do that stupid one-on-one pass blocking drill. And he got murdered every day in it, like a ritual sacrifice. And it was like, I don't know if he won a single rep. And it just, I think mentally it beat him. It crushed him. And then, he wasn't like kicking people's butts all over the field like he did at Coleraine. And I'm telling you, like for college kids, like that's the thing. That's why I never get excited about any recruit until he proves he can do it in college, because you're going to go to Ohio State and you're that freshman corner who's 5 stars, like some of these kids we get coming in, and then you got to go see Marvin Harrison Jr. in one-on-ones, and he eats your lunch every single time, or you got to go cover a Mecca or whoever, and it's tough, man. And it's like these kids, they're fragile, and that's why I really love 7-on-7, because you're gonna get beat. I mean, if you're playing JJ Smith and Ennis and some of these guys, like, you better eat your Wheaties, but you're not, unless you're Darrell Reeves, like, you're gonna get beat by these guys, because it's designed for the offense to score and be proficient. But I don't know, it's always interesting. Something I wanted to touch on, just because it's a really hot topic, is Ohio recruiting by the Ohio State staff right now. It's something where, I think me and you have talked at length about how the talent is down in Ohio. I think a lot of it has to do with the population shift. I think that northeastern Ohio is weaker than it's been, because Massillon, McKinley, like, that area, Stark County, like, we used to have guys at Glen Oak, and me, and we had like a bunch of guys, Doss and Kenny Peterson, and that area's really gone down. I just think that, when you're used to get 170 guys out of the state of Ohio that are D1, and now you're getting 80 or 90, maybe 100 on a great year. I mean, people lie, but numbers don't. But what do you think of Ohio State's strategy? Because I get that they have to be very surgical with the offers, because like, you can't pull an offer on a kid in the state of Ohio, because the coaches here are like real dudes. They're not agents and handlers and whatever.
Right.
So, you can't, like the Danny Clark thing was a real unfortunate thing, because committed early and did the deal, and they stopped recruiting him. And that was a tough thing for a kid that, he didn't really do anything wrong. I mean, he might not have been good enough to play here, but the kid committed as like a freshman, and then he was, by the end of his junior year, they were moving on to Tate Martell. But what are your thoughts on the strategy Ohio State employs with dealing with Ohio kids? And because there's a lot of fringe kids, like, the kid that just committed from St. X to Michigan had an Oklahoma offer. And how does that kind of change the speed at which you got to recruit some of these kids? Because I know as soon as they get that Michigan offer or an Alabama offer, then it's time to really evaluate a kid. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I don't look at someone's address. You know what I mean? And I don't think you can. If the ultimate goal is to win a national championship, I don't think you look at the kid's address. And Ohio State has proven they can go from coast to coast and get who they want. So I'm not going to offer an Ohio kid, because like you said, when you pull that offer and screw around, I don't know if they've gotten a kid from Hoban since then. I mean, it causes hard feelings. And then that coach also talks to other people too. And you got to really be careful when you do that. So I'm not going to offer an Ohio kid until I know I'm going to take that commitment, so it's tough, and offering Danny Clark as a freshman is a perfect example. There was no reason to offer him as a freshman. Where was he going at 15 years old? He wasn't going anywhere. I don't care if he committed to anyone. You're going to recruit him for the next 3 years anyway. So that's a great example of what can go wrong. Now, when I see them offering Bryce West or the Scott kid, it's like, oh yeah, I'm all in on those. But then when I see, the Armstrong twins at St. Ed's, who may end up being, college and NFL superstars, that to me, those kids to me, there's a line there of automatic offers. Then you got that bucket of kids that I would want to go see them in April during the spring evaluation phase. And then they're either good enough to be offered then or they're not. And I want them to come to camp in June. I may wait till they're seniors. I'm not offering until I'm ready, that I know I want them in my program. I know I'm taking that offer. I'm going to take their commitment, because, man, I think an early offer that you may have to backtrack out of can be like so devastating, to where you've got to do it to the Georgia kids, the Florida kids, Texas kids. Just throw a bunch of offers out there. It's fine. But, boy, you recruit that Ohio kid, you better know. And when I look at those Armstrong twins, I like them. I like them a lot. They are bona fide, guaranteed Power 5 dudes. But Do I know for sure that those guys will beat Bama? Because that's what I'm looking for today. I'm not comparing them as are they the best in Ohio, which they clearly are. Are they the best tackles in America? Nobody in Texas can compete with these kids. Nobody in Florida can compete with these kids. Nobody in California. Nobody at Bosco. And if that's how you feel, then you offer them. But man, if you're not sure and you still, then I wouldn't offer them. I would need to see more. And when I see a kid get offered in February or late January, like we are now, why didn't they offer him in October? What has he done since October to earn that offer? You obviously didn't offer him when you saw him in October. You went to his games. You saw those kids play. They weren't offer kids then. Well, what has happened since October till now, January? They haven't played any more games. You know what I mean? They haven't been in any camps. They haven't been on your campus working out. That's what makes me wonder when I see those late January, early February offers. I'm going to know what changed. Why didn't you offer him in September or October last year when you saw him live? So that's the only questionable thing for me. And I'm just one guy's opinion, you know what I mean? Justin Fry knows more than I know, and I know that. But those kids to me would be kids I would want to wait. I'd recruit the heck out of them, get that relationship built, go to their school when the evaluation period starts, and make my decision then. But I just don't understand these January offers to kids that you could have offered in October and you didn't when you saw them live. So, but I just think overall, to answer the question, you got to be really careful with throwing Ohio offers around. When you throw it out there, you must be prepared to take that, or it can cause a lot of, especially at St. Ed's. You don't want to take people off St. Ed's. You need to go back there year after year after year. So I just think you have to be really careful with the Ohio kids. And again, where are those kids going right now? And I don't care if they commit to Michigan or Georgia or whatever. I'm going to keep recruiting them. So it's not like they've signed anything. So that's how I would balance it. I would look at Bryce West a lot differently than I look at any of the O linemen in Ohio right now. So, but it's all your board. You formulate your board and you go after your dudes.
I think it's interesting because like the O line, it's always like one of those weird things because it's a tough eval. Guys can gain 50 pounds in a year. They go from 250 to 300, and just by eating and lifting. And again, just from my life, when I was a sophomore, I was 210. My junior year, I was 250. Then I was 265 my senior year, and it's like I was a 265-pound guy that went to Ohio State's camp and played tackle and never pass protected my life, but I was able to move my feet, stay in front of the guys. I absolutely crushed the combine. Like I ran a 4.75 and I jumped higher than Kurt Lukens on the vertical, and I never let him forget that. I had 32-inch vertical, which for an 18-year-old is good. But, I was going, all the linemen I was with, Matt Maisel and Ty Hall and all these guys that were, 315 pounds, 330 pounds. And then there's me, the runt. But I was skinny and wiry, and I knew I'd gain weight. I knew I'd get up to about 305-ish and 310-ish and play there. But it's a tough eval. And I think that those camps are important. It's amazing how basically the one-on-one pass rush is kind of their Super Bowl, because if you shut guys down in that, because that was what I did. We used to have Ohio State Advanced Camp back in the day where it was literally it was the greatest thing ever. Like it would have been a field day. I don't even know if they let the media into it. I think John McAllister was there.
No, we were allowed into that.
That's so funny because you guys would have loved it because it's literally all good on good. Like it's Dante Whitner versus, like Louis Irizarry didn't come to that, but like David Patterson came. It was all good on good. Every guy there was a stud.
I think that's how Hartline got his offer, was at an advanced camp.
Yeah.
And he was there like 3 or 4 days, I think, and worked out every day. It wasn't like a one-day thing like it is now. You were there for a while.
Oh, I went to a 5-day camp, 5 straight days at Ohio State.
Yeah, Hartline did that too. And I remember that's how he got that offer.
Yeah, he probably went to the 3-day camp, which is like they don't even have those anymore. Where it's like you stay in the dorms overnight and you eat breakfast in the morning and then you go work out, then you have lunch, then you work out again. I mean, you have like basically 2 practices, and then in the night you'd go play basketball or go swimming or do something at the rec center or something, or play. They used to play the Buckeye Bowl or whatever. But no, I remember seeing Brian down there at camp, and I was joking with him because I was on the team then, and he was a senior. I was like, "Are you ever gonna leave?" And he was like, I mean, he was great because he was funny, but I mean, he wanted it. Like, there's some guys that they're not
Yeah.
going to be denied, and honestly, that's why I don't turn my nose up at kids that don't want to come to camp. But I always am like, "What are you scared of?" Because I mean, if you're that bad, if you're that dude. If Brian Hartline was that dude, Brian wasn't scared of anything or anybody.
Right.
Like
Right.
he was
Right.
like, put me against Ted Ginn at cornerback, put me against, because he wanted it. He wanted to go whoop him, and that's why Brian is who he is. Because like it's just like he is in recruiting now. Like when he shows up, he's coming to whoop you. He's not coming to cut a deal and be buddies, and he's coming
Yeah.
to break you off. And again, that's why I like Brian. Like Brian's always been great because he was never
Right.
scared of anything. So
So Darren Lee did the same thing. I mean, Darren Lee came to camp, I think 3 or 4 different camps. He just kept coming back. Where some kids, it's like, oh, I worked out. They didn't offer me, the heck with them. Darren was like, I'll come back tomorrow. I'll come back next week. And I'm going to show you what you need to see. And that's how he got his offer. He had to come to camp several days. So you want it or you don't, and something you want bad enough is worth working for, instead of feeling rejected or your feelings are hurt or being disrespected or whatever. It was like, haven't showed you enough. I'll be back tomorrow.
no, I mean, and again, if you want to go to a place like Ohio State, the one thing that you're not allowed to have is feelings. Because I'm telling you, like, if you're a player or you're a coach or just remember, no matter who you are, if you're at Ohio State at some point, they're gonna hate you. It doesn't matter if you're Ryan Day, Urban Meyer, Jim Tressel, Woody Hayes, C.J. Stroud. Like the mob will get at one point, they will get angry and be upset with how you played, a play you called, whatever. So again, you gotta have thick skin for it. Something I've been really wanting to ask you is, how do you view Michigan's aggression in recruiting in the state of Ohio? And how does, are they taking the correct approach? Because they're going on kids, the Roebuck kid who's the big tackle from Eds. They went on him. Brian Robinson, they're probably going to go on the kid from Fitch. How do you view that, and how does Ohio State adjust their approach at all? Because again, there's levels to recruiting, as you know. It's like there's that MAC level, there's that low Big Ten, that Illinois, Purdue. Then there's that upper Big Ten, Wisconsin, Penn State. Then there's the peak, which is Michigan, Ohio State. And then, like Oklahoma came in and they went on the kid from St. X. Like what some of the bigger schools offer, how does that change Ohio State's approach? And just talk a little bit about Michigan's aggression in the state of Ohio.
Well, Michigan is just probably something that I'm not qualified to speak on, because I haven't gotten what they've been doing for a couple of years now, and they keep winning the Big Ten and going to the playoffs. I don't understand it. I don't get it. They lose coordinators and they just go find 2 new coordinators that I've never heard of, and they end up as good or better than what they had before. They're recruiting. They're not pulling the top 1, 2, 3 recruiting class in America. They have kids that I don't think can play, and they can play. And so I'm probably not the guy to speak on that. They have a head coach that interviews for NFL jobs all the time. How many interviews has he had already this year? 2 or 3. Last year, he interviewed with the Vikings on signing day. It was the biggest middle finger to a school I've ever seen in my life. They had cut his pay the year before. So all of this is usually a recipe to go 7-5, and you have a disaster on your hands. No, they're now the kings of the Big Ten. I don't get it. With a head coach, it seems like he doesn't want to be there. With coordinators who definitely don't want to be there and they leave, they're recruiting kids that I think are beneath who they should be recruiting, and they don't lose games. You know what I mean? So I'm not the guy to speak on Michigan. I don't get it. And every year I keep saying this year they're going to go 7-5 or 8-4, and they don't. So I really don't understand it, to be honest with you. It's been amazing to see. I tip my hat to what's going on up there, but I don't get it. I definitely don't get it. You know what I mean? So I'm not the guy to ask about how Michigan is having all this success. I wouldn't follow them. You know what I mean? Just because they're
Yeah.
offering some of these five kids, I'm doing my own evaluations. I'm not going to be forced to do something by another school. I think I got to do it my way, the way that I think is the right way to do things. I don't want Jim Harbaugh telling me who to offer or Nick Saban. You know what I mean? I think and you've sat in those rooms before, I think when you're in that recruiting room and you're going around the table, you got to know who you want and who you need. You know what I mean? And if you can't figure it out, and if you got to say, well, Michigan offered this kid, maybe we better, you got a problem. You have a big problem at that point that really can't be solved. You have to do your own work, do your own evaluations, and live and die with what you think. If Jim Harbaugh can do your recruiting for you, then I wish you the best. So, and I still think the Ohio State way is the right way, even though they get killed every year by Michigan, or they have the last two. But I still think their way is the right way. And I think you recruit from coast to coast. You go after the best. You have your board, and you stay true to your board. That's the way I think Ohio State does it under Ryan Day, how they did it with Urban. I think Mark Pantoni leads the way in that, and I think their way is the right way. I would do it the Ohio State way, other than the Michigan way, where the coach interviews with NFL jobs all the time. The coordinators leave after they get new coordinators. They under recruit who they should be recruiting, and they go undefeated. So I would stay with the Ohio State way. I really would.
Yeah, it's the weird. Like, I mean, I've never been more wrong in my life than I was about Sharon Moore, their offensive line coach. He's won the Joe Moore or the. I mean, he was a he coached tight ends and running backs, and I was like, this isn't Harry Heason. This isn't like some blue blood O-line coach, dominant. I mean, he'd never coached O-line before. And they made him the O-line coach. I was like, that's going to be a disaster. And then he turns around and they win the Joe Moore twice. They whoop us twice. I mean, I was wrong.
And those aren't those are legit awards. They've earned those awards. I mean, they've been a great O-line 2 years in a row now.
Yeah.
So do I understand that? I do not. And that, Sharon Moore, I don't get any of that. They lose Mike McDonald, the coordinator, goes back to the NFL. They lose Josh Gaddis, and they pluck two new coordinators. They don't even start the same quarterback, even though he's on the roster that led them to the playoffs last year. Start a new quarterback. Head coach interviews he wants out of there so bad he would take any NFL job. Nobody offers him one. I don't get it. That is not a recipe to go undefeated and go to the playoffs, but they've done it 2 years in a row. So it's amazing. It's the most amazing thing. I mean, I see a lot of things that, if those things were going on at Ohio State, people would burn the stadium down.
Oh,
if
God.
Ryan was interviewing on signing day.
It's like the Patriots.
They just pick some dude and make him the O-line coach. And if they lose coordinators every year, and we'll just get two new guys to be coordinators. If all that was going on and recruiting all these 3-stars, they get kids out of Massachusetts. If all that was going on at Ohio State, there'd be a revolution.
It's unbelievable.
I respect what's happened up there just because of the record. Bill Parcells said it best, man. You are what your record says you are. Yep. And they've been the Big Ten champs and been to the playoffs the last 2 years. So, you tip your hat to that.
Oh, yeah. And for some reason, and this is an interesting one, I'm going to ask you on this one because, one of the big topics people are always wondering is, why can't we get any portal offensive linemen? So we've offered about 700 portal offensive linemen. We finally got one, the kid from Louisiana Monroe, but Michigan got like 3, and one is another Remington finalist. They had the guy that won the Remington, came from Virginia, was really good this year. And then they go out and get Stanford Center, who's probably going to win Remington next year. Why does Michigan, why are they able to get guys that you'd think we would want or need? Again, a Remington center when Luke Whippler's walking out the door would be fantastic to add to the roster. But what's the difference? What's the disconnect? Like, 'cause that's the weird thing is like I figured I'd be like, look, if I'm Justin Fry, in the last 2 seasons, we have had 4 offensive linemen declare early. Like that's never happened at Ohio State. We had 3 guys go this year. We had Nick Petit. Nick Petit and Thayer both started games as rookies in the NFL. I think Nick started every game for the Titans, unless he got hurt one.
No, I
And
think you,
yeah, Paris and Dewan are going to be starters next year in the NFL. Luke's probably going to start in the NFL, be a mid-round guy. I'd be like, guys, you guys want to get developed to go to the league, especially if you're a tackle. Like, look at our tackles we've had going on to the league. They started as rookies. They're ready to go. They're good. They're great players. And still, like, we get like no, like I would just be like open for business, left and right tackle. But what's the disconnect? Why is Michigan so successful in the portal versus us? I mean, because that's like the $1 billion question. But what are your thoughts on that?
you can't blame NIL because Michigan is supposed to be at the bottom of NIL, how to do it. Harbaugh's supposed to be clueless on NIL, and they're just not. So you can't blame that. And again, are they not promising these kids that they would start, which I think is a very dangerous game to play with high school recruits. That's a very dangerous game. But the portal to me is different. I'm not going into the portal looking for a backup. I got backups. I got rooms full of backups.
Yeah.
So if I'm going after you, you're going to start, and I'm going to tell you that you're going to start. You know what I mean? I know when they brought Justin Fields in, like, I know they told him, I don't know what they told him. To me, I would have told him, you're my dude from day one, brother. Lead us. When they brought, the Jackson kid in from, where'd he come from? Rutgers?
Yes, Jonah.
Jackson from Rutgers. Man, you're starting, dude. You're my right guard day one. You're my guy. So I think it should be obvious if you're in the portal, you're not in the portal looking for backups. You know what I mean? So I'm telling these kids, you're my left tackle next year. I need you. Come to Ohio State. I want to turn you into the next Nick Petitfrere, the next Thayer. I want you to be DeJuan Jones for us. You're going to be on the field for Ohio State. Big stage. This is where you prove yourself. You know what I mean? So I don't get it. But, if I'm going in the portal for a kid, I want him to know I want him to start. I'm definitely going to tell him that. I'm not going to the portal looking for backups. I got lots of them.
Uh-huh. How many of the portal tackles that they went after do you think realistically were like guys where you're like, that is a slam dunk, high level, beat Alabama or beat Georgia starter? Because like I looked at all these guys, and a lot of them play small ball. They're playing at New Mexico or wherever, like little UTEP and Massachusetts, UMass, or these old dinky schools. And like I watched who they go against. And I was like, well, that ain't that's not Jalen Carter and those type of dogs. But that's the thing I don't know. Is like I don't know how many of those guys were actually like really that great. I mean, there's guys that they get a lot of accolades at small schools, and that's cool. But you go to you got to go block Aiden Hutchinson or Jalen Carter. It's a different ball of wax completely. Right. But how many of the tackles in the portal do you realistically think would have been like a stamp 'em day one starter at Ohio State?
Well, it makes you wonder, and almost tells you what Ohio State thinks of their O-line room, doesn't it? I mean, they offered everybody. They offered every tackle that had a pulse, maybe a few that had already died. I don't know, but that they're telling you what they think of the guys they have coming back. They weren't in the portal looking for wideouts, for a reason. So why are you in the portal? They're not in the portal looking for running backs. They got a million of them. They're all good. Why are you in the portal looking for and you offered all of them. They offered everyone. That tells us something. That tells me a lot. So to me, it's kind of disturbing. Now, when I see him in the portal today for the freshman All-American from Ole Miss, man, I get that one. Yeah. Sight unseen. Sight unseen.
Come on in.
You're starting next year. I guarantee you you better tell that kid he's starting next year. And that kid knows he's going to start next year. He's not stupid. He looks at who Ohio State has. But unless that kid has an injury I don't know about or off the field things that I don't know about, man, I'm doing all I can to get that kid. And I'm telling him he's going to be a starter.
Yeah, it's Davison and Inbinosun, like Etienne Sabino, Bino, like
Yeah.
it's called Bino. But I got his film rolling on the background right now. For those of you on YouTube, no, I just think that with the tackle room, I would imagine a couple of those guys will transfer. Some of the guys at the very bottom of the room if they actually want to go play somewhere, because there are some guys that just flat out can't play, and I think that every room has a couple guys that can't play at that level, and that's why we've seen guys take off. We haven't seen as many guys in the O-line room take off, but I think that, something people don't talk about is the amount of attrition that we've had over the last 3 years on the offensive line. The Harry Miller situation was terrible.
Oh,
But
yeah.
he was a 5-star center that frankly probably would have started last 2 years probably. And instead Luke Whippler steps in. And if Harry doesn't have his issue or retires, like Luke Whippler would probably be like a 4th-year guy with 0 starts right now coming back. So,
Could be, or they play them together and one of them moves to guard, who knows? But
yeah.
Yeah, the Harry Miller situation is, obviously terrible for the kid, and you just want the best for him. But for Ohio State, that would hurt, man.
Oh,
You don't
yeah.
have any 5 stars, when one of them walks out the door, man, that's tough. So that
Oh,
was out of their control. No, you're not blaming Stud there, not Justin Fried, right? It was just a bad situation.
yeah. And then
And
we had Ryan Jacoby portals to Pittsburgh. He's going to start a tackle for them. Max Ray went to Colorado. He would have probably started there, but he had a medical and he never played again. Got hurt. Then you
yeah,
have Nick and DeWand and PJ all leave early. Now PJ is the guy that you probably think's going to leave after 3 years. Nick Petit, you kind of figured he redshirted that first year and he's 4 and out, but it's just weird because like we're now all of a sudden, like, when you think you have I mean, most people, when we took DeWand, who was a big project, you assume you'd have him for 5 years,
right,
So this
right.
year you probably could have had DeWand play left tackle, and then that line looks a whole lot better than it does now. But he got out of here, and it's just been a weird run. But
Yeah. Hey, thank
I
God Matt Jones came back. Matt Jones could have
oh,
left. Thank God he came back. I think he gets drafted if he leaves late, but I think he would have been drafted.
yeah, and I think he'll be a guy that'll be a preseason All Big Ten guy, and
Yeah,
might touch all of it. So again, I think he's the center. I think he's the guy that runs the show. I think that the Cutler kid that they bring in is probably competes to be a backup. Like I think that the first day of spring ball is probably going to be Zen, Donnie, Matt, Enoch, and then Fryer at right tackle. Then they just kind of rotate guys in and out. I think that we just need. I think Justin's biggest thing was we need more competition at some of those spots, at the tackle
yeah,
spots especially. And again, like when you've got these guys that are 3 and out, like it's a good and bad thing. It's like taking one and dones in Kentucky basketball. I mean,
yeah,
you know what it is when you get Paris Johnson. Like you're not going to say, "Well, we'll redshirt that kid and let him sit for a year." And now he was on a plan to graduate in 3 years, be an All American, be a first round pick, and he's going to hit all 3. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
I think it's fascinating. Do you this is an interesting question. So, RJ, I talk about this a lot. He says, in the Midwest, just because of the dearth of talent versus the South, how much does it affect Ohio State just being up here, where it's not as talent rich as it used to be? Again, I go back to the '02 class, which it seems like dinosaurs, was 20 years ago, but that class, you have Maurice Claret, Mike DeAndrea, Nick Mangold, AJ Hawk, Bobby Carpenter, Troy Smith, Justin Zwick, like Quinn Pitcock, Nick Mangold. I mean, all Ohio kids, literally.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and I mean, you could win a national championship with a class like that, but you can't take that. You don't have. I mean, not only were those guys in state, but those were like very high level guys. They might not have had the highest recruiting rankings, but by the time their careers were over, they were first round picks, All Americans, Heisman winners.
yeah,
Obviously Maurice Claret's the best at. If he had gone 3 years, he probably would have won the Heisman if he stayed 3 years at Ohio State and did his thing that next year. But how much is it that we're just not in the state of Georgia?
it's huge. I
Yeah.
mean, it's huge, no doubt. And I agree with that question 1000%. I mean, when you look at where does Alabama and Georgia have to go to get their guys? They don't have to go far. Here in Ohio, you can't do it with Ohio kids like you used to. And just the raw numbers that you laid out spell it all. You're now in a state that produces 80 to 90 D1 kids, which is good. How many of those are MAC kids? A high percentage. You're not producing 170 kids anymore. You know what I mean? There was a day when I would drive from my house not far to Massillon and look at their 7 D1 kids, then shoot over to Camp McKinley and see their 7 or 8 D1 kids. Go to Glen Oak and see their 2 or 3 D1 kids. Those kids are all gone now. They're gone. They're not around. St. Ed's, when I would take a trip to Cleveland and look at St. Ed's, it's 10 D1 kids. Glenville's 10 D1 kids. This is spread out over 3 classes. Chuck Kyle would have his 10 D1 kids. Those kids aren't around anymore. That's 50 kids probably in a small radius from Canton to Cleveland. There's not 5 anymore. It's crazy. Maybe 10 at the most. So, yeah, of course they have a huge advantage in the South. And that's why they win all the titles. How many have they won? If you look in the last 20, it's staggering. It's the teens, you know what I mean? And then when they don't get them, like the SEC doesn't get them, well, Clemson gets a couple. Yeah. And Clemson's an SEC team to me. Yep. You know what I mean? They're certainly not a Northern team. Nope. So, yeah, of course, it's a great point that RJ brought up. I agree with him 1,000%. It's harder at Ohio State. It's definitely harder. And that's what you're dealing with. So shut up and go to work. Nobody wants to hear it, but it's a great point.
No, they don't.
But, it's a great point, and I agree with that 1,000%. I see the 7-on-7 team that Brett and Ricky put together. Ohio State would take all those kids. This is just a 7-on-7 team made up of, Dade and Broward County. Ohio State would take all those kids. A couple years ago, Bama had that great defensive backfield that won a national title with Surtain and Daniel Wright.
Battle. Yeah.
All 3 of those kids played on the same 7-on-7 team. They were Brett's kids on the same 7-on-7 team. And they are a national championship defensive backfield. So, it's 1,000 times harder. You know what I mean? It's another great question here, and I don't have the answer to that one from David Greenshield. I don't have that answer. I can't tell you why. I can tell you that, the numbers say that Ohio State had 90 D1 kids this year?
Yeah.
80 or 90. And
yeah,
it used
like
to be
80.
160, 170. I can tell you just the raw numbers that the talent isn't here anymore. Why? I don't know. Where have they gone? I don't know. They're just not around anymore. And Ohio is a heavily populated state. Where are they at? I don't know. Other people have them. You know what I mean? So you can't say football's down. Moms aren't letting their kids play football. That's across the country. That's not just an Ohio thing. So where are the D1 kids, the Ohio State level kids? I don't know.
Do you think OSHA's insistence on not having any type of spring football hinders our development and hinders our ability to get recruited up here?
I do. I think you have to use everything at your disposal, because those kids are using everything at their disposal. All the top kids are playing 7-on-7. Florida has spring football. I've been down there to spring football. It's amazing what they do. I've covered it for scout.com. So you've got to use everything at your disposal. Why are you having your kids compete with one hand tied behind their back when Florida and Georgia aren't? You know what I mean? So I think you have to use everything at your disposal. I don't think in Ohio, we're being fair to our kids. Okay, and a lot of it are the coaches. The coaches are scared to death of having that AAU mentality in high school football. They're scared they're going to lose their kids to another program. Well, who are you looking out for there? The coach looking out for his record and his job, or are we looking out for our kids? Who are we doing right by? Are we doing right by our coaches, or are we going to do right by our kids? Do we want our kids to get college scholarships and be all they can be? Or are we worried about some coach losing a superstar wide receiver? To me, I'm always for the kids. Okay, so that's where I land. I think everything should be done to make our kids better and increase their opportunities. I'm all for that. I hate seeing us have 90 D1 kids when 15 years ago, 10 years ago, we had 170. Those are 80 kids that aren't going to school for free anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do we really care about the kids? Is that what we really care about? Those numbers right there should be scary enough to people to insist that we have 7-on-7 and we have spring football. Because we now have 60, 70, 80 kids that were going to college for free. Where are those kids at now? Where are they going? They're not going to college for free. I don't have that answer.
They're honestly, a lot of them probably aren't going to college.
I'd rather see them in college, getting college degrees. That's what I wanted for my two kids, and they have them. So I want that for everybody's kids. So yeah, that's I mean, you write a book on this. You really could.
My thing with like the AAU thing that you bring up, because again, it's a good point, and I think it's kind of like seeing a ghost, but why hasn't it destroyed basketball and baseball? Because baseball, there's travel baseball all summer, and AAU basketball is all summer. So what's the difference if a kid picks AAU football, essentially?
Yeah, I just think the high school coaches are scared to death of seeing their kids playing with other kids from other schools, and well, that's life. You know, we're Maslin Perry guys. Where have our guys gone for the last 30 years or more? They go up the road.
Yeah, of course. I mean, they're gonna go like Devin Jordan, who was in my class, didn't want to be a wing T quarterback, so he went to Maslin, and honestly, I was angry with him about it. I still give him crap about it, but hey, he became a Division I Ohio State football wide receiver, full ride scholarship. So did he better himself? Absolutely. You know, that's so I can't be mad about that when a guy wants to.
Yeah, but to me, that kid ended up with a college scholarship. Did he play at the high school I root for? No. Do I care about that? No. I want to see these kids get college educated, go on to do great things in their lives. So when we see 170 kids used to get D1 scholarships, and now we're seeing 90 from our state get them, and 80 kids a year, I don't know where those kids are, you know, what's happening to the rest of their lives because of that. To me, it's scary. It's scary. And if that means our Maslin Perry team loses some kids, oh well. Oh well. I want to see kids become college educated and do well. And when I see the numbers drop like that in our state, to me, that's alarming and it's scary. And I don't think it's right. And I think we should look at this to give these kids every single opportunity to make themselves the best they can be. And when we don't have 7-on-7 and we don't have spring football, I don't think we're doing right by our kids.
I literally couldn't agree more about anything you've said, because I'm telling you, like the 7-on-7, I think it's, you know, again, I think it, you know, with like what Brett does with the organization, and it gets kids exposure to recruiting analysts like yourself, where they can say, hey, this kid's the guy. Hey, you know, it's like, I know these analysts obviously talk to college coaches. Hey, you should offer this guy. You know, it's just like a no-brainer. It's like one of those things where, you know, and then you do spring practice, like Division III college football, like Mount Union level football. They do 2 weeks with no pads, and I think that would still be better than nothing, because at least you can install plays, run around, catch the ball, work on blocking, you know, bags and that kind of thing, and you can install your offense in the spring. At least that would get the kids to be in helmets and be able to.
Whatever they're doing in Florida and Georgia, California, that's what we need to do in Ohio. Okay? Why should our kids be at a disadvantage? Why are they not getting everything that other states are getting? Why? There's no good answer. We're not doing everything that we can do to help our kids be the best they can be. And to me, that's wrong. My son-in-law coaches at Maslin Perry. I'm sure you know.
Oh, I know Ethan.
Oh well, man. Oh well. I mean, I want the kids to become the best they can be, and if that means they hang out with kids from other schools and they go transfer to that school. Oh, well, make your program better. They'll want to stay. They'll want to come to your school.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Or
I'm glad that guy brought that up. I mean, it's a great question, and it's something that has bothered me for years. Only when you look at the numbers, when you look at the raw numbers, then it kind of hits you in the face.
oh yeah, like that's where you're just like, I'm literally it's half. It's 50% fewer. So that means that
Every year, too, every
yeah.
year. Compound that over 3, 4, 5 years. You're talking a couple hundred kids that are not getting D1 offers right now. And I don't think we're doing everything we can to help them.
I,
So
I totally agree. Ted Hammond committed to Michigan, the Saint X kid I was talking about. I don't know if you've seen him at all. I thought he'd D
just
tackle from Saint X. Yeah, I
yeah,
watched this film and I thought he'd be a good offensive tackle, but do you think he was worthy of an Ohio State offer? I mean, obviously committed to Michigan tonight, but I didn't see like anything that was mind
he would be a
numbingly
camp
crazy.
kid. He'd be a camp kid for me. Get your butt to camp. I want to see you work out. And maybe he does do that. You know what I mean? He's committed to Michigan now, but what's to say we won't see him in camp at Ohio State in June? So would I offer him now? I would not, based on the film I saw. No, no. Do I think he's better than the whole D tackle board from Texas, California, Florida, Georgia, Alabama? No, I don't think he is. But I'd sure like to see him in camp. Come show me. Show me
Yeah.
what you got. And, you're back up on the screen again. Then Ohio coaches say that hurts spring sports. Are we worried more about the kids or are we worried about the coach's baseball team? It will hurt spring sports, but let the kid make the choice. Let the kid decide, I want to be a great football player, so I'm not going to play baseball this year. Yeah, that might hurt spring sports. Oh, well. That means somebody else gets to play on the baseball team that would have got cut. My focus is always on the kids, not on teams' records or coaches' individual records. I'm always about the kids doing well. Let the kids make that choice with their parents. And if a kid gives up baseball to concentrate on football spring, oh well. That means somebody else is going to make the baseball team that would have got cut.
That is the perfect, because again, you look at high level sports, like for instance in hockey, a lot of kids go away to play junior hockey at 16 years old, and they're living with a billet family, which is like a family that basically they live with, and they're literally are 16, 17, 18-year-olds that play 80 games of big time hockey before they get drafted into the NHL. And somehow their schools that literally lose them because they go and play junior hockey, they survive somehow.
Yeah.
And so those kids, like their baseball team somehow still survive. And like you look at Ennis and Malachi Tony and some of these guys, they don't play basketball, they don't play baseball. They might run track, I'm not sure, but they're football. And the way these kids specialize.
A lot of them do run track, and
Yep.
the coaches work it out. You know what I mean? You work it out to where the kid can go through football practice, but maybe he misses a football practice on Wednesday because he's got a baseball game. And the coaches work it out for the best of the kid. What are we concerned about? As a coach? Am I concerned about going, 20-5 in baseball as opposed to going, losing 3 more games? Or do we care about our kids? Do we want our kids to be the best? And they still run track. Those guys all run track and they go through spring football. You work it out. The coaches work it out. Hey, we got a game tonight. Let Johnny skip football practice today. You get him back tomorrow. Sure, that's fine. Coaches work together for the best of the kid.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I said, I think like a lot of these sports, like if you're a gymnast or a baseball player or a basketball player, it seems like every single sport in Ohio except for football has like an AAU travel element. And and
Yeah.
it absorbs so much. Like if you're a high level swimmer, like you can't really go play basketball and track. I mean, because you're in the pool. I mean, it's just whatever sport you want to be really good at, you got to dedicate a lot of time and resources to it. And I feel like again, we're gonna make. I know Bill's like, I don't want to be the president of OSHA, but I wish you were because you'd probably have spring football done by tomorrow. But I just think that it's just so important that they do that because it just we're falling behind in a big way. And like you said, these college coaches, they love to go down to Florida and Georgia and go watch,
It
these
is.
scrimmages, and they get to see guys in pads
Sure
actually
do.
practice. And
Yes. And in
you know,
Ohio, you can watch them run track and play center field.
yeah,
So there's an advantage there. I mean, when you look at a high school kid in Florida and you take his 4 years of high school, all the extra practices he gets, I mean, that's a lot of extra football he's playing because you can't play football like you can become a better basketball player in your driveway. You can
yep.
become a better shooter. You know what I mean? There's a lot of other sports you can football, man. You can't strap it up and find 21 other dudes.
No, you
So
can't.
look at all those extra practices that those kids get over the course of 4 years.
Oh,
They let's go play a spring game. You know what I mean? And so he gets 4 spring games, all those practices. It has to make you better.
oh,
It
there's
has to make
there's no doubt. Like football's, especially like in the trenches, like offensive D line. You can go out and catch balls from a jugs machine or have your quarterback three balls, but O line, D line, like to get padded work done against
yeah.
each other, you can't. Like I can't say, "Hey, Bill, meet me in the park and bring your shoulder pads and
Right.
helmet. Let's go." You'd be like, "Screw you, dude. I'm not gonna get ran into by you." But like,
That would only be one-on-one work anyway. This is team on team.
yeah,
You know,
oh
you're
yeah,
playing you're playing football, real live football.
yeah.
And, I mean, it has to make them better. The course of all the extra football those kids get to play in Florida, Georgia, California. I mean, it has to make a difference, and it does make a difference.
Yeah, and then you inject 7-on-7 on top of it, and it's like you get like triple the skill development when you live in one of those states.
Let's give our kids every advantage. And if they don't want to play baseball, that's their family choice. They've made that decision with their family, and that's their choice. And if they want to play both, then the coaches work it out. There are kids that run track and play baseball, and the coaches just work it out together. You can do the same thing with spring football. And spring football doesn't last the whole spring. You're only talking,
No.
2 or 3 weeks, I think.
Yeah,
So,
and I look at like your guy from McKinley who went to IMG, and I look at like Carnell Tate who went to IMG. They went there at a young age, business decision. It's hard. They left home, but they
yeah,
were all football all the time, 365 days a year, and they ended up going to LSU and Ohio State. And like I just look at that model, and I think that that's the most successful model because you're completely immersed in the sport that you want to be
yeah,
great at.
right.
There ain't no dodging, no spring ball or any of that. And I mean, that's, the kid from McKinley that went down there, like, I mean, it stinks for McKinley because they lose an SEC level
Right.
tackle. But, I mean, that kid probably developed more by going down there. And
Yeah, it was clearly the best for him. And yeah, it did hurt Canton McKinley. Oh, well, if that's some other kid start that wouldn't have started. That's the way
yeah,
I look at it. I mean, I don't care about the high school's records. I don't care. I care about these kids having every advantage to pursue their dream. And, I'm not even talking about NFL. That's not what I'm talking about because very small percentage do that. I'm talking about becoming college educated for free.
yeah.
There are 50, 60, 70 less kids a year going to college from Ohio for free. That's
And,
scary to me. That's staggering. They're not, and maybe they can pay for college, or maybe they take loans out, or maybe they just don't go. And then
well,
we're losing college educated people. And I see nothing better than having our young people become college educated. Again, you beat a dead horse all night on this, but what I wanted for my kids when they were a very young age, I wanted them to become college educated. And they are. And I've seen the benefit of that. It's an amazing thing. Neither of my kids are in any professional sport, but they have college degrees and they're, have great jobs today because of it. And what I want for my kids, what I want for your kid and everybody else's kids.
Absolutely. And the thing that you haven't touched on that's also really true is a lot of these kids, if we're being brutally honest, they wouldn't get into a college on just merit. A lot of these guys, they need that exception that they get through being athletes. Like, I mean, we would write, for guys that were, Ohio State, their baseline average ACT score for the freshman class is like 33, and a perfect is a 36. So I got a 26. So if Kirk Barton shows up with a 3.5 GPA and a 26 on the ACT, Ohio State isn't going to even look at me, but if you're an athlete, they can get you in. So, and that's across the board at every college. Like there's guys that get into college that would never get into Michigan or Penn State or Akron or Kent or wherever. So where does that leave them? Out on the street, hanging around, doing nothing, whatever, as opposed to, progressing through life and grinding towards a college degree, which is tough. But once you're done with it, man, and you got a degree, it's way easier to go out and find a job doing something in the world when you can say, yeah, I graduated from Ohio State or Michigan or Penn State or whatever. So, but yeah, that's the thing that's really unfortunate. It's really, honestly, it's sad to me. Is that there's, like you said, there's 80 kids that even if they had the money, they still might not get into a college because they might not have the grades. They might not have the yank that you get when you're a college kid. If you're a college football player, they can get you in. There's college football players that get into Stanford that would never get into Stanford or Duke or Harvard or whatever. So yeah, that's part of the gig. But yeah, you wonder where those kids end up. And like you said, it's a sad deal. Well, Bank, I appreciate this. This has been an excellent show. Again, I love when you get back from these 7-on-7 events because those things are always a blast to hear about. We're gonna go check one out. And I just appreciate everything. Any final parting thoughts? We're getting into winter conditioning. Spring ball opens on March 7th. So, what would you say?
6 weeks away, man. So, yeah, and this year I think spring ball takes on a little added bit of juice because there's going to be so much competition all over the place. Mainly, the quarterback spot is going to be off the chart, and then you're going to want to see how things are progressing on that O line.
Oh yeah.
I mean, those are huge question marks this year. And then even the defensive backfield. What's going on there? What's happening on that D line? The only places that are really set are wide receiver, running back, linebacker. Other than that, man, there's position battles all over the place. And those are going to be so much fun, to track day after day.
Oh, I'm telling you, that's the best part about spring because there's going to be guys, everybody wants to play, man, but now it's time to play. Now you're the guy. You're not watching Paris Johnson doing it anymore, Zen. You got to get in there and go do it now. And you got to do it at Paris's level or something close because now we're counting on you. So that's always the interesting part about spring. And again, like I'm higher on the line just because I really know Justin Fry really well. I know he's going to do a good job. But the last time people were this nervous about an O-line was 2014. I wish I could have had an interview with you then and said, Beck, we're starting Daryl Baldwin at right tackle, Jacoby at center. I mean, I couldn't imagine your days. I'd be like, how much are you going to bet on us winning the national championship, Beck? We got Jacoby and Daryl Baldwin starting. You'd have been like, yeah, I think I'll short that one.
And that was, you never know. That's why, we tune in the spring and we want to see who's taking that next step, who's better than what they were last year. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun to track this year because you don't have all these guaranteed starters, that they've had in the past. So it'll be fun.
I can't wait. Anytime there's a quarterback battle, it's always fun because that's the one that everybody. That's who wants the golden ticket to be the next first round quarterback at Ohio State because we're churning them out right now, and whoever gets that spot, man. We've had the All Big Ten quarterback for 11 straight years since 2012. Every single year we've had the first team All Big Ten quarterback. Braxton JT, Justin Fields, Dwayne Haskins. I mean, every single year. So I mean, that's like whoever wins this battle is like, ooh boy, I get to throw to Marvin and Emeka and Cade Stover and Trey Henderson and Mayan and oh my god. So I think they'll be able to muck it up front, and with that kind of skill, it's like you don't have to hold the ball long because Marvin will get open quick.
Yeah.
So, well, I appreciate you, Bank, as always. Thank you, brother. I'm gonna wrap this thing up. Thank you, my man. What a great show. Fantastic. Bank's passionate about spring football. I can't agree more. These kids need the skill development. I think it helped the coaches as much as the players because they get, to install their offense and defense at a more relaxed pace. Even if they did it without pads, I think it would be good. They kind of have the camp days in the summer, but get it done, OSHA. We are talking Ohio State football. We're tracking the huge portal news. First team All-American, or excuse me, a freshman first team All-American corner coming to visit Ohio State is going to be fantastic. It'll all be on BuckeyeScoop.com. I don't know if I'm tracking the Laurinaitis stuff. That's my guy. I hope that he gets in here. Not sure if he will. But there's a lot of stuff. They got to backfill the support staff that's been not rated, but a bunch of these guys took jobs with Kevin Wilson, which is great for them to be full-time coaches now. So it's going to be really good. I'm excited about it all. And we are on BuckeyeScoop.com nonstop. If you guys could, on your way out, leave us a like, comment. Should Ohio have spring football? Yes or no? Write it in the comments. Appreciate you guys. As always, join BuckeyeScoop.com. Our community is out of this world. The Bank had a chat today. It was massive. Very entertaining stuff. Very fun stuff. Doing it the way only Bank can. And the community is awesome. So we appreciate you guys. As always, thank you so much, Scoop family. And thank you, Buckeye Nation. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Go Bucks.